guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm your host, Rebel Sjeklocha, and here on the podcast, we sit down with people who are truly pushing the envelope. Today's guest is no different. I'm visiting with Jacey Hupp. She's an all-around cowgirl, a coach, and an inspiration to many. She's the women's rodeo coach at the University of Wyoming, and she's with us today to share her story. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And now I know how to say your last name.
There you go. Oh, awesome. Well, you're further ahead than lots of people. So you wear lots of hats these days. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, give us a glimpse into your background and where your love for rodeo began.
Sure. So I grew up northwest of Huron, South Dakota. My older sister lived 3 miles away. My parents bought the place early 90s. A lot of people will kind of ask my rodeo start, and truthfully, the first thing that my dad put up when he bought the place outside of Huron was the arena, and it was just something all of us kids more or less just picked up and started doing because it's what everybody else was doing, because it was just such a part of my childhood when I was really, really young. I mean, I think the way I really even learned how to ride was just warming up my dad's team roping horses in a saddle that I could swim in. So it was just really what the whole family did. And I'm a follower, so I just followed right along.
Awesome. Well, you've had a lot of success, specifically qualifying for the College National Finals Rodeo 5 times. Take us through your college rodeo experience and what you learned along the way.
So I was kind of perplexed going into college. I really didn't decide to college rodeo. I was really debated about playing college volleyball. And you said you did some research on me. Well, I think you did some on your podcast as well. And you had John Cook on here, and he has been my idol ever since I went to his camps. So, and I really, really wanted to play college volleyball, but just the more I looked into it and the more research I did, my sister was a senior at SDSU when I was going to be a freshman. And so ultimately I decided to rodeo with her, and it was truthfully one of the best decisions I made. Rodeoing with my sister my freshman year was amazing, for lack of better terms. She took care of me, handled all my stupid questions, and I owe a lot to her definitely that first year, because I had a lot of freshman mistakes for sure. But yeah, I college rodeoed at South Dakota State University. I breakaway roped, team roped, and then goat tied as well. And the goat tying is where I definitely had most of my success.
Well, clearly you're very athletic. And, you know, my dear friend Micah, as we were talking about people to invite on the podcast, she recommended you because she said, and I think this was a direct quote, in the goat tying, no one could even touch her or come close. So you obviously have a very fierce competitive mindset. Where did that come from, and how did you develop that?
I really didn't have, especially the rodeo drive, it didn't turn on until later. My siblings and my parents, they had to keep me very accountable and teach me the work that it puts in. Like, my dad would call from the office, what goat did you tie? How many did you tie? Did you rope the dummy? And when you're 9 years old, you're not very good at fibbing, so he could always call us out. And then every night when my parents got home, they said, catch horses, let's rope. And so I definitely didn't come by it naturally. It was very instilled in me. And but I've always hated to lose. And I think that was my biggest driving factor, was I realized the work that I had to do to keep myself from not losing. Yeah. And the one thing that I probably, honestly, I enjoy the roping and the horsemanship of roping a lot more deep down, but goat tying was the one thing where I felt like I could control so much more than the roping. And it's one of those events where the hard work and really, really sets it apart. You can outwork someone in the goat tying. And that was something that really appealed to me, because I might be on a $1,500 donkey, but I could outwork you. And you really, especially the college level, have to be committed. I would tie every day, if not twice a day. And sometimes it was in coveralls, but I knew the time that needed to be set aside for it if I wanted to be as competitive as I wanted to be.
Absolutely. So you obviously had a lot of success in college, but you had a pretty substantial injury in college as well. Talk about that and what that healing process was like.
Yeah. So I was at a jackpot in McCook, Nebraska. And it was the middle of our fall season. Not even. I think we were 3 rodeos in. And I was on a newer horse, and he was pretty strong, and we were roping really strong steers all day. And then about the third round, they a few of them slowed down a little bit, and so that horse just kind of roared up there. And when I got my slack and went to the horn, I waved it off, but was already on the horn and pulling left. And then when that happened, it went all the way down to the right horn and then snapped back at me, kind of like you see a tow rope snapping when they break and you're getting a truck that unstuck. And people that were there said it sounded like a gunshot going off, because that nylon will stretch in that head rope, and it knocked me off my horse and kind of knocked me silly. And I didn't really know the severity. I knew it really hurt. I knew my eye was the size of a softball and sticking out of my head, but we didn't really know. And so the people that were around me, they took me to the ER, and then called my parents, and they couldn't really do anything. They just gave me some antibiotic drops, and that was about it. And then I was about 9 hours or so from my hometown. So we went the next day, and thankfully I had some friends there that drove me back and took care of horses. And then we went to my local eye doctor pretty late that night, and she got us in, and then she kind of looks around and she's like, yeah, there's not much I can do for you. So recommended us to Sioux Falls. And I think the toughest part about that injury is we just didn't know so much for so long. They just said, swelling's got to go down. We can't really see anything. We can't really do anything. Just pretty much put me on bed rest for about 6 months. And that was hard for me, because anybody who knows me knows I do not sit still at all. So it was that we started to finally figure out things, and then we learned the more severity of it, and that I would definitely need a pretty major eye surgery. And so I started consulting then just outside of the cities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they had to get a retina specialist, as well as just kind of an overall, I think it was iris specialist was the other one. And then another loophole we ran into was it took a long time to get both of those specialists to have the same schedule to do my eye. So it was just about a year wait just to get my surgery. And then I had about 4 surgery dates. And I remember being I would still come and support some of the rodeos in my sunglasses, and because my pupil was blown, so I could not handle much light at all. And I remember coming to the last college rodeo, and I was supposed to have my surgery after that. And then I got the call that, so some of the parts, like for my artificial iris, actually came from Germany. So they got stuck in customs. So then my surgery date would be moved again to July. And this was really defeating, because I was kind of planning on getting surgery in May, and then hitting rodeos up in the summer, and then feeling really confident before heading back into the college season. Well, that was not the case. I got surgery in the beginning of July, had to sit out about a month and a half. And then I went to one rodeo, and then it was college time. So I very much was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and getting used to switching my dominant eye, and getting used to really just having a lack of depth perception too, which you wouldn't think is a big deal, but I don't think I'm that clumsy. I really just can't see that well sometimes. But it was looking back now, it was a really special time for me to get really close with my parents, and really close with my horses and my family too, because my parents went to every single appointment with me, and we got really close. And if they were worried and stuff about things, they dang sure hit it from me, and were the most supportive, and were really supportive of me getting back to rodeo. And just, it was never an option not to, because I remember even having the conversation, like, I'm probably just going to like barrel race here from now on out, right? Because I can't do the hands-on stuff. And they just said, nope. And I went to one rodeo before the college rodeos, and it was in White River, South Dakota. And I was in my 3 events. And I remember just thinking, like, I have my horse French fry. She was she was pretty special to me, and she took care of me. But she was very much on her own agenda. And I remember that first rodeo, I thought we would just make a nice, controlled, smooth run. And she just, as soon as that gate was open, she just took off and said, keep up. And I just kind of reacted. And I think we maybe placed second, just had a decent run. And then from there on out, I just was kind of keeping up with everything. And the fall wasn't as competitive as I would have liked, but I just had a lot to learn, and little things like how are my eyes going to handle a night performance with lights on, because lights are really glaring to me, and just kind of just figuring out as we went. And I wore sunglasses a lot and my glasses a lot, but it was a really special year, and I had a lot of support from family as well as from my region and my coach. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot about just it's kind of a weird scenario to be where you can't really trust your body. You got to trust yourself. So that was a huge learning curve for me, but it was looking back now, I can definitely see the appreciation in that whole heck of a year.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, coming from competing at such a high level to having kind of, a bizarre injury come out of nowhere, I'm sure that had to be an experience that really taught you a lot about yourself and how you respond to things like that. What did you learn during that period of time?
I definitely learned to filter out some of the opinions of people for sure too. You can listen to the opinions that you're given, but it's the ones that you really got to filter out which ones you really need to take to heart. Because I remember everybody had so much advice for me, and they had this knee injury and this ankle injury, and I remember just thinking, like, we are not the same. I'm a one-eyed goat tire. I cannot relate with you on that. And then I remember one person even telling me, like, they had a one-eyed dog and he was such a good dog, and I'm like, awesome. So I can play fetch now. But I really just learned to just find my circle and trust my circle, and that's the opinion that I should value. The other stuff, you listen, you're polite, but just never think about it ever again. So that was probably my biggest takeaway from a lot of that, and just finding out who my true circle was.
Definitely. Well, that's been a few years ago. Where is your eyesight at now, and how did things heal?
So overall, like, my eye is healthy. A lot of the troubles we ran into too was that my eye pressures were so high that it would just make me sick all the time, because when your eye pressures are so high, your body looks for a release. And for me, that was throwing up a lot. So your eye pressures are supposed to be like between 10 and 20, and I would push 60 quite a bit. So as far as like physically, my eye is doing a lot better. They did a lot of cleanup. They put shunts in so that it drains properly. They put all the coloring that you see in that eye is actually hand painted in Germany to match my left eye. But it's really just decoration. If I cover my left eye and it's bright outside, I can tell there's lights, but really it's just decoration. So it's just kind of there, but I'm glad. That was one of the hidden blessings too, and waiting a long time for surgery, was that technology advanced so much. They told me if I would have got my surgery right away when it happened, I would probably have like a brown leather eye or potentially a black. So in a way, now it's easy to say that it was worth it to wait. And I'm actually the first artificial iris transplant in South Dakota. So I guess there's something new. Whatever that means. I never got a medal or anything for it.
Darn it. I have to write Governor Nome and tell her to send you an award. Oh gosh, that's crazy. Well, from your success to overcoming this sort of injury, you've really been through a lot as a competitor. At what point did you decide that you wanted to try your hand at coaching?
To be honest, so I coached some club volleyball stuff, some junior Olympic volleyball, the end of my high school career. And then I helped with the men's club volleyball at school. And my parents always had practice stock around, calves, goats, steers, everything. And they loved having people over. So it was pretty natural just to help the younger people, the kids who had questions. So it was kind of just slowly embedded into me. And then we had some of the kids that would come over to our house more or less just say, like, I think we can get a big group of these kids and you guys can get some money out of it and you can host a clinic. And my sister and I were kind of, I don't know. That's not really, we practice too. So it's, more or less just practice. And we had some family friends really push that on us. And then it ended up evolving that my sister and I, Taryn, would host 5 or 6 clinics a year. And that was probably the big stepping stone into where I'm at now. I never really, I graduated college with a fairly basic degree because I truthfully didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just ag communications. And then I graduated essentially during COVID. So I had interviews lined up, and then all of them fell through because wonderful COVID. So one of the jobs that applied up in my hometown, because I was doing all my finishing up school online, was at the FSA office. And so I ended up applying there and getting it. So I was actually a loan officer 3 years prior to this coaching position. So it very, very different from the coaching world.
Absolutely. So,
Mhm.
what prompted that shift from being a loan officer to making your way to the University of Wyoming?
To be honest, it was people who threw my hat in the ring, thought I could do it. And then that led to the head coach at University of Wyoming calling me. And it floored me when he did. I was very surprised. And my college coach, Ron School, I even called him and just said, "This happened. Can I do this? What do you think?" And he was so supportive. And I'm really lucky that my family was behind me and believed in me and supported me and just said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, truthfully. And we think you should go for it. Um, and I'm really lucky because I got that first call in February about it. And then I stayed in contact with a coach and ended up visiting in April. And my parents were so behind me and so for it. And then they ended up passing away in May later that year. But I knew, even though I lived with them when they passed, and I knew exactly how they felt about the position. So to go forth and, leave things at the ranch I was raised on and just to move to Wyoming, I knew I had their full blessing. So that was really special. Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, having that support is an important component, and I can only assume that you see and you carry out their legacy every day in your role as a coach. How do you see that coming to fruition?
I definitely reflect a lot about when I was younger and in the practice pen with my parents and in the practice pen with my previous coach. Like, what were things that like helped me? What did I need? I definitely reflect a lot on my own experiences and I learned a lot of stuff the hard way. I feel like throughout my college career and my high school career. So being able to tell my students, I did this, I really wouldn't do that. You should try this way instead. I think that's where I base a lot of my coaching off of.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, you've been an incredible mentor to many athletes. Talk more about the mentors in your life, whether they be your parents or otherwise, that have shaped you into the mentor that you are today.
So mentor is a hard word for me to describe myself as, I guess, but it's kind of hard to deny as well, just the position I'm in, that's likely really truthfully what I am. But my family we're very tight knit, and South Dakota as a state in general is very tight knit. So I have, hundreds of people that I would bounce off of things just at weekends at the rodeos or texting them or calling them on things. But probably my biggest mentors were my older siblings for sure, Taryn and Trevor, instilling that practice mentality into me, and like, you need to do the work to have results, and you may get lucky every now and then, but that's not the consistent basis you want to be at. And Brian Fulton was a really big mentor of mine too. he made the he made the NFR, and I believe the bulldogging and the calf roping, and he was just a true horseman and a great person. And the Fultons in general, I got to rope at their house a lot, and they're really good horsemen and people, and so smart about things, but yet keep it simple. And I learned so much from them, and I owe a lot to them. And Kayla Nelson, well, now she's Spicklemeyer, but that was when I finally started getting serious about goat tying. I went to her clinic, and we kept in touch for years, even throughout my college career. And she was really supportive of my sister and I doing goat tying clinics and would answer all of our questions. So those are probably most of my key mentors. But I definitely, even being around like my 14-year-old nephew and watching him rope and what he's working on or what he can fix, even being around that capacity, I guess, of skill, I can learn a lot from him too. Just what do I see that I think could help? And then in turn, even me at a different level that can still help me. So I'm kind of the type where I can learn something from everybody, and I pray to God I never quit learning, because how boring would that be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've been in your role for a few years now. What is the most rewarding part about coaching?
Ooh, that's kind of a tough question. Um, I think just to bounce back into helping kids not have to learn everything the hard way is probably where my biggest passion at. I feel like it's kind of funny. I said it's kind of hard for me to talk about myself as I'm on this podcast, but I feel like when I'm coaching, I do truthfully talk about myself a lot, because I'm like, I was there and did this and did that, and don't do that. I promise you, it doesn't work out that way. But that's probably my most rewarding part of coaching, is just helping kids not have to learn the hard way. And they have so much more to look forward to now. Like, I knew and was conditioned before I even went to college, that college was it, especially for goat tying and pretty much for all the roping events too. You can go to amateur rodeos and that's kind of it. But now these girls, they don't have to necessarily just practice for the weekend. They can practice for what's ahead and do the things that makes them have a long, strong career. So I'm really hoping I get some girls and definitely some guys at the NFR, because I cannot wait to spend way too much money on a ticket and be front row and watch them.
Absolutely. Well, it's so obvious just talking to you. Obviously, we're talking, over the computer, but your energy and your passion for this is really evident. So I am very much envy all of your students, because that's pretty cool.
I hope they all think that too.
Well, you've really been on both sides of things, both as a competitor and now as a coach. What value do you see in college rodeo, and why do you think that students should participate?
So the cool thing about University of Wyoming is that kids, and really all schools, but kids can do their passion as well as get that degree. You learn, even like reflecting back into my college career, the connections I made, the lessons I learned is truthfully why I'm in this position now of my dream job. I had coaches that were, at the time that I was rodeoing, are the ones that threw my hat in the ring. I think the thing about college rodeo is you're such a tight-knit group that people will do so much for you and take care of you and help you with things just beyond rodeo. And it's really cool in the region I'm in, the Central Rocky Mountain region, how close the kids are and how close the coaches are. It's, when we go to Casper, I'm excited to cheer for the whole region, not just the kids in the brown vest. And I'm excited for that for years to come too. And it's pretty cool just how close and tight knit and close everybody is. And just how, kids are not only crushing their dreams, and I mean that in a positive way, not reaching their dreams, I guess, in the rodeo world, but also in the classroom and setting themselves up for careers. We have girls like Cassandra Shoemaker, who you had on your podcast as well, which,
She's
by
a
the way,
stud.
she made the Steer Open finals.
That's so exciting.
And she's the only girl there. But she's also applying for vet school. And it just amazes me. And we have some kids on full academic scholarships and engineering students. And just to see have careers because of college rodeo too, and have that degree paid for because of college rodeo. And it's just really exciting, all the opportunities and the people you meet.
Absolutely.
That's a long-winded version, but
no, that was wonderful. Well, you certainly have a lot of rodeo experience and a lot of life experience to draw on. What is a piece of advice that you'd like to pass along to our listeners?
One thing that last year especially taught me was, so my parents and my baby niece passed away in May, and I was since I lived at home, I was in charge of keeping the ranch afloat. And finally, about July, I was having my my mixed team roping partner, which, bless his heart, JD Gerard, he messaged me while I was in the hospital with my nephews, getting them better, and just said, let's enter over the 4th. And I'm like, oh, I haven't touched my horses since the fall. I don't, and kind of tried to tell him no, but he's also like an 8 healer. So how do you tell him no? But I remember just, I finally said yes and started competing, and just how thankful I was to be out there and doing it and doing something I love. And I competed pretty well over the summer too. And I think I just took a lot of the pressure off of the competition and more just embraced how blessed I was to get to do what I love on horses that I love with people that I love. And I think a lot of people are so results driven, but really I'd be more disappointed at my kids if they didn't put the work in at practice versus how they compete at the rodeo, because at the end of the day, some of it truly is luck and just how it's supposed to happen, and it's in God's hands, but you still got to put in the work and set yourself up the most you can for success. So I think my best piece of advice is how you are in the arena or what you do in the arena is not who you are as a person. I like to think that, yeah, I'm sure my CNFR qualifications didn't hurt my chances of this position, but I really hope a lot of it I was hired for was my connection with people and kids and my desire and my love for the sport, aside from just what I accomplished in the arena, because I don't even like to wear some of my college buckles nowadays because it feels so long ago. But I hope that people at the end of the day just truly think I'm a good, caring person. And I want that to be more my legacy than whatever I did in the arena. And I think just reinstating that to my kids is something I pray to continue to keep.
Absolutely. Well, your vulnerability and humility throughout our conversation has been so inspiring to me. So thank you for sharing that so willingly with us. This has been a real treat. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd want people to know?
Oh boy. I think one thing that I do want to say is my family and my friends and my neighbors all back home really rallied behind me to make this position and me moving possible. And I would not be at the University of Wyoming without them. And I gotta say thank you. I can't probably end this without saying a thank you to them. But my older siblings, Cassie, Taryn, Trevor, and our neighbors, Blaine and Paul and Carrie, and Laura and Brad McGurr, you guys are amazing. And they're taking care of me even from 500 miles away. And I wouldn't be there without them.
Absolutely. Well, Jacey, thank you for sharing your story today. It is evident why you are in the role that you are, and I look forward to following not only your success, but also the success of the University of Wyoming rodeo team going forward. Well, once again, that was Jacey Hupp, head rodeo coach for the University of Wyoming women's team. She was also a 5-time College National Finals Rodeo qualifier herself and is now paying it forward as a mentor to other student athletes. If you'd like to meet other difference makers in the rodeo industry, be sure to check out previous episodes of Breaking the Barrier available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We'll see you next week.